Welcome once again to the Certified Christian Mediator Training of Cerebral Theological Seminary. This is the College of Christian Professionals and Researchers, and I'm Reverend Dr. Temilolu Aliu. I'll be facilitating this module of the training, and we will be discussing communication and facilitation in Christian mediation. Communication and facilitation in Christian mediation. In this module, we will discuss effective communication and facilitation skills for Christian mediators. What are the skill sets that you must develop as a Christian mediator to foster effective communication and facilitation? We are going to talk about how you can also foster open dialogue and understanding between conflicting parties and the techniques to help guide conflicting parties towards mutually agreeable solutions. But before we talk about all of these things, let's discuss why we need to study this in the first place. Why is communication and facilitation even essential in Christian mediation? Why must mediators master effective communication and facilitation in the first place? To start with, you need effective communication to build trust and rapport. Trust is the foundation for any mediation process. It is the foundation for any mediation process. And Bible says in Psalm 11:3, if the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Nothing can be done to salvage a situation through the help of a mediator if the mediator has not won the trust of the disputing parties. If they don't trust you, if they don't trust your abilities, there is no way they are going to be free enough, to fully participate in the process, to participate wholeheartedly in the process. So you must establish trust early on in the mediation process. You must establish trust. If the foundation be destroyed, what can the righteous do? So use communication to establish rapport, then from there build trust so that you can encourage the parties to be more willing to engage in open discussions. Also, effective communication and facilitation enhances understanding. You see, one of the reasons why there are conflicts in the first place is that the parties do not understand each other. So you can introduce communication skills, and use your own facilitation skills to kind of build the bridge between both parties. I think of communication like a bridge that connects two islands. And in this case, the two islands are the minds of, the conflicting parties. Paul wrote in Philippians chapter 2, verse 2, he says, be like-minded, be of one mind. So if two parties do not understand each other, it means they are not of one mind. The only way to get that done is, to build the bridge through communication, such that parties can cross from their individual opinions to a shared understanding, such that there will be a strong and clear passage of needs, of ideas, of opinions, of concerns from one party to the other. You can only get this done through effective communication and facilitation. And as you enhance understanding, you are reducing misunderstanding. Misunderstandings are like tangled threads. Tangled threads. And just as tangled threads can be confusing, ineffective communication can lead to confusions, to misunderstanding, and many times even cause more problems. So, clear and concise communication helps to untangle these threads of misunderstanding. That way, the parties will understand each other's perspectives better, and in many cases, accurately. Sometimes it is not possible for two people to understand each other's perspectives accurately, but sometimes you just help them to have a better understanding of each other's perspectives. So definitely you need effective communication and facilitation skills, to reduce misunderstanding. Paul said in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 7, consider what I say, and the Lord give you understanding in all things. Consider what I say. So it is through what is said that understanding is fostered. You cannot get two people to understand each other if you cannot, foster communication. And if you, as the mediator, you are yet to master communication and facilitation skills. Now, another thing that effective communication and facilitation does is it helps to manage emotions. It helps to manage emotions. Emotions are like turbulent waters that make it difficult, to row from one end of the sea to the other. And through mediation, you help the disputing parties to navigate their emotions. And you can only do this if you understand how to facilitate effectively. You remember in one of the previous modules we mentioned that mediators are first and foremost facilitators. First and foremost facilitators. You are trying to facilitate understanding, you are trying to facilitate resolution, and you need these skills. You need to help people navigate their emotions if you are going to get this done. Remember that in the mediation process, the disputing parties often have very strong emotions, very, very strong emotions. So you need to bring in some sort of a rudder that helps parties to navigate these turbulent emotions, to keep the discussion on course, so that emotions will not get the best of them and prevent the and get them to veer off into unproductive directions, prevent them from sticking to the main issue at hand. So it is through effective communication and facilitation that you help people manage their emotions such that the process is going to be productive. I tell you, if you don't know how to manage people's emotions in mediation process, even you as the mediator will end up frustrated. I can tell you that from experience. If you don't trust God for wisdom and master the necessary skills to do this, you will end up frustrating yourself in the mediation process. You frustrate yourself, you frustrate the people that have come to you for mediation. Another thing that effective communication and facilitation does is it encourages active listening. Listening many times is like assembling a jigsaw puzzle. You hear this, you hear that, and you are bringing together all the different parts. As a mediator, you need to master how to do this. As a mediator, you definitely need to master how to do this. In James chapter 1, verse 19, James chapter 1, verse 19, the Bible says that let every man be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. So as a Christian mediator, you must be quick to hear. You must be quick to hear. Active listening is very, very vital in mediation. It is vital for you as the mediator, and it is vital for both parties too. So when you understand effective communication, you will not only be able to listen actively yourself, but also to encourage the parties involved to listen attentively, to pay careful attention to every piece of information. That way, number one, no crucial information is missed. Number two, it tunes the mind of the disputing parties to actually focus on the other party and not on themselves. Another thing that effective communication and facilitation does is it fosters collaboration. Like a team rowing a boat, collaboration. Amos chapter 3, verse 3, can two work together except they are in agreement? So you are trying to get two parties to agree and then to work together towards resolution. And that's what mediation is all about, getting the parties to work together to reach a resolution. Effective communication guides the disputing parties in synchronized rowing of this boat of resolution so that they can move collectively in the same direction. You can imagine a team rowing a boat and they are rowing in different directions. Yeah, that can cause some serious accident or disaster. So if you master effective communication, if you master effective facilitation as a mediator, you will be able to foster collaboration between the disputing parties. Another thing is effective communication and facilitation skills will help you to achieve win-win solutions. Will help you to achieve win-win solutions. Proverbs 16:11 talks about just weights and balances, where everybody has a fair share. So parties will identify common interests, will identify the options available for them, you know, and then they reach an agreement on what works for everybody. You cannot get this done without effective communication, without effective facilitation. If there is no effective communication, listen, you might even come up with the best resolution, but one or more parties will remain dissatisfied. So, although what you did is what would eventually have been done, but because there was no effective communication, the parties do not see it as a win-win solution. So you can see at the end of the day that there is no other way out for you as a Christian mediator. You must master effective communication and facilitation. There is no other way around it. You need to master effective communication and facilitation. Now let's begin to talk about communication specifically. What are the key principles of effective communication? The key principles of effective communication. Principle number 1: active listening. Active listening, we've talked briefly about it already before, but just for the sake of, emphasis, so that you understand its importance better. And this will keep coming up even in subsequent modules, because it is non negotiable. It is extremely, extremely important. Active listening. Proverbs chapter 18, verse 13 says, a person that answers a matter before he listens well, it is folly and shame unto him. Listen, as a Christian mediator, it is folly and shame if you don't learn to listen well in the mediation process. It fine-tunes the mediation process for you. It allows you to hear the concerns of the, parties involved in conflict and to respond appropriately. Active listening is very, very, very is a key principle of effective communication. Take your time to listen. Don't be quick to respond. Just take your time to listen, take in the information, process it, analyze it. Very, very important. Another key principle for effective communication is non-verbal cues or non-verbal communication. Things like body language, like facial expressions, beyond the words that they are saying. Look at their reactions, look at their body language, look at their facial expressions. It gives context to the words that are spoken. So someone might say, well, it's all good, it's fine, no problem, but you look at their face and you understand that what they are saying is actually that there is a big, big problem. So Christian mediators must understand non-verbal cues. You definitely must. Proverbs chapter 15 verse 30. The Bible says that light in the eyes of a messenger brings joy to the heart, and a good news gives health to the bones. So even before the news, Bible says that the countenance, the body language of the messenger already brings joy to the heart. So body language is one of the things, non-verbal cues, facial expressions, body language, very important for you to master and to pay attention to as a Christian mediator. Another key principle is the principle of empathy. Empathy and understanding. You need to actually walk in their shoes so that you can understand their perspectives, so that you can understand their feelings. That way, like we said before, it fosters trust and also cooperation. If you want to get them to cooperate with you, you need to master empathy and understanding. Put yourself in their shoes. Try to understand where they are coming from. Try to see things from their perspective. Try to see things from their viewpoint. Is a key principle. Don't see things from your own viewpoint. In fact, don't see things from an objective viewpoint. Because listen, at the end of the day, you want to be objective, but the only way to get them to come to that place is to first of all understand their subjective opinion and why they have built that opinion. You cannot force an objective opinion on them, but you can encourage them to consider things from another perspective. And the only way to do that is to first understand where they are coming from. Another key principle of effective communication is patience and calmness. Oh, as a mediator, you must be patient and calm. Throughout the process, you must remain patient and calm. No matter how tense the situation is, remain calm. No matter how frustrating some people are, remain patient. Patience and calmness will allow the parties to see their issues more clearly. They'll see their issues more clearly and make rational decisions. And the only way to get them to that point is to mirror it to them yourself. Mirror it to them yourself. Model it rather to them. Proverbs 14:29. Whoever is patient has great understanding, but one who is quick tempered displays folly. Be patient. If someone is talking, allow them to get, you know, to the bottom of the issue. Don't form the habit of cutting in. Don't form the habit of telling people something like, I already know where you are going. No, let them go there. Allow them to go there. Don't tell them you already know. It is very, very vital for effective communication in mediation. So please master these four principles: active listening, nonverbal cues, empathy, and patience. Master these four key principles. They will go a long way to make your mediation process more effective. Now, let's talk about facilitation techniques. We're going to spend a lot of time talking on these because, like we have said, I believe in module one of the major works of a Christian mediator is facilitation. Everything you do boils down to one thing, and it is called facilitation. So, what are facilitation techniques that you must master as a Christian mediator? Number one is setting the environment. Setting the environment. Proverbs chapter 25, verse 24 says, it is better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than with an angry woman and in a wide house. In other words, the environment is very, very important. If the environment does not foster peace, does not foster resolution, I mean, you're just wasting your time. So you need to master how to set the environment. We're going to talk more on these points one by one later on. But setting the environment is important. Number two is structured communication. Is a very important facilitation technique. Structured communication. 1 Corinthians 14:33. Bible says, let things be done. In verse 40, it says, let things be done decently and in order. Decently and in order. In verse 33, it says that God is not the author of confusion. So you need to bring order and decency into the communication process. There are techniques to help structure the communication process. You also need reflective techniques as a Christian mediator, where you can reflect to people, the things that they have said, so that they know that you get them, they know that you understand them. And it helps you to also think deep about what you are hearing, because you need to interpret it to be sure, and give them feedback so that they can help validate that you got what they are saying. Proverbs chapter 15 verse 28, the heart of the righteous studies to answer. Studies to answer. So you study what they have said before you give an answer. And you get them to validate that you indeed understand what they are trying to say and where they are coming from. This is a very important technique for facilitating resolution. Balancing power dynamics is also a very important facilitation technique. Balancing power dynamics, because sometimes in mediation, there is an imbalance of power. For example, employer employee, pastor member, parents children, right? So as a Christian mediator, you need to master techniques of balancing power dynamics. Otherwise, you may not be able to do so much in helping to eventually resolve conflicts that involve power imbalance. Open dialogue techniques is another set of facilitation techniques that you need as a Christian mediator. Open dialogue techniques to facilitate open dialogue. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 1, I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. I'm waiting to hear what he will say, and I'm ready to actually think well about what he has said, so that I know what to answer. Open dialogue process. There are techniques for facilitating that. And finally, managing conflict dynamics. Because I tell you, there are dynamics that contribute to every conflict. No conflict is as simple as, well, we just had a misunderstanding. There are contributing factors that many times you need to address before going to the main issue. So when you read Proverbs chapter 18 verse 3, the Bible says, when a wicked man comes, then also comes contempt, and with it comes ignominy, reproach. In other words, it's like a train. One leads to the other. A wicked man, then contempt, then ignominy, reproach. It follows after one another like that. Sometimes conflict is like that. There are many contributing factors, and you must develop techniques to identify and to address the different factors contributing to the conflict. So let's go to talk about these facilitation techniques one after the other. Setting the environment. You need to create a safe and respectful environment. Establish a secure and respectful space where parties feel safe, where they feel valued, and where they feel free to express themselves without fear. They are safe. They are not afraid that there may be one sort of repercussion or punishment or whatever. They feel their information is safe because they know that this is confidential. They feel valued, where they feel that their opinions will be heard, and they feel free to say exactly what is on their mind. A safe environment is like a fertile soil where you grow plants. Plants can only flourish when the soil is fertile. If the environment is not good, nothing will flourish there. Open communication and trust can only thrive in a safe and respectful environment. Can only thrive in a safe and respectful environment. So you must learn to build this kind of environment for your mediation processes. You must set an atmosphere that gives off the feel that I am safe here, I am valued here, and I'm actually free to say what's on my mind here. That is the basic facilitation technique for any Christian mediation process. Next to that is structured communication. Structured communication. Techniques like ground rules can help maintain order, civility, and balance during mediation discussions. So the communication must be well structured. You must lay down ground rules. So, for instance, things like no name calling, no insults, no talking over the other person. When someone is talking, you keep quiet and allow them to finish. You can, for example, tell them you must use I statements only so that they don't keep pointing fingers. You did. No, I feel like I, you know, my opinion. In some cases, you may need to introduce such ground rules. You may even establish time limits. If you are asked to talk, please, you have 3 minutes, you have 5 minutes, because I kid you not, some people in mediation process, they will waste your time. They will keep talking unending. 10 minutes, they are still talking. 20 minutes, they are still talking. So you may need to establish, time limits. Another ground rule you can lay down is that the mediator must never be interrupted. No matter what, the mediator must never be interrupted. And by interruption, that is different from talking over the other person. So take, for instance, if the other person is talking, there are two parties involved in a conflict. You have asked somebody to talk. If the other party has something to say midway, they have no right to talk over the person, but they can raise their hand. And if you deem it fit, you can tell the person to hold on and then ask the other person to talk. You know. But if it is the mediator talking, you do not even have the right to raise your hand. The mediator must finish talking before you give your opinion. Mediator must not be interrupted. These are some ground rules. Listen, every game becomes chaotic without rules. There are rules of engagement in every game. If you play the mediation game without establishing ground rules, it will become chaotic in the end. It will become chaotic in the end. Let everything be done decently and in order. Then we'll talk about reflective techniques. Reflect back what parties say to enhance understanding and validation. Reflect back their emotions, their concerns. Just like a mirror reflects your physical appearance, you must become that mirror. That after they have spoken, you can now reflect back to them their emotions, their concerns. Help them see themselves. That way they feel heard, they feel understood, they feel valued. And remember, whenever they are talking, three things to focus on. What emotions am I seeing here? What does this person need? What are this person's concerns? Then after they have talked, just, in one sentence, sweep over the three. I understand from what you have said that you are angry about this situation. You need this person to apologize, and you are concerned that they may have damaged your reputation. That's how to reflect their emotions, their needs, and their concerns. So, for instance, two friends have an issue, and then one of them has finished talking. Oh, I understand from what you have said that you feel betrayed and you feel like you need some space from this person, but you are concerned that you may lose your friendship eventually, or you are concerned, or you need them to apologize, but you are concerned that they may never change, something like that. But reflect back to them their emotions, their needs, and their concerns. Next to that is balancing power dynamics. This is a very, very, very vital technique. Mediators must ensure that power imbalances between parties do not hinder fair and equitable negotiations. Power dynamics must harmonize in mediation to create a fair process. Proverbs 31, 8 to 9. The Bible says you should speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. Speak for the rights of those who are destitute. So whenever you notice power dynamics, you must take on the responsibility to balance the power dynamic. Why? Until you balance power dynamics, you cannot have a fair process. Balancing power dynamics ensures that the mediation process is fair is impartial, and that is fundamental to gaining the trust of the parties in the first place and to reaching a resolution that is mutually beneficial. And that's the second thing that balancing power dynamics does. It leads to equitable outcomes. It helps prevent one party from dominating the process and imposing a resolution that may not be in the best interest of all the others involved. So this is an employer, and then there is a workplace dispute, employer and 5 employees. There is already an imbalance in power dynamics. If you do not balance power dynamics, that boss may eventually impose a resolution that may not be in the best interest of the employees involved. So balancing power dynamics will support the pursuit of equitable outcomes. And finally is enhanced communication. Benefits of balancing power dynamics, outcomes of balancing power dynamics. You enhance communication. By addressing power imbalances, parties are more likely to engage in open and constructive communication because they feel that their voices will be heard and valued. They become emboldened, empowered to say exactly what is on their minds. Now, the question is, we have said that you must balance power dynamics. We have told you, why it is essential. But what are the techniques to use to balance power dynamics? The number one and the most basic is your own neutrality as the mediator. As the mediator, you must maintain neutrality. You must maintain impartiality throughout the process. You must not take sides or favor any party. You must not form an opinion that will prevent you from being truly impartial. Like the employer-employee situation that I raised. Once the case is brought before you, don't be like, why would an employee behave like this towards his boss? Once you form that opinion, you have stopped being neutral. So you must see both parties, as equal people seeking a redress. Yes, pay attention to the relationship dynamic, but do not allow the power dynamic to sway you in one end or to one end at the detriment of the other. Your neutrality and impartiality is the first technique to balance power dynamics. Remain impartial. And sometimes you may be forced to be partial to the one who is at a disadvantage in the power imbalance. So you should not also form an opinion of, oh, he wants to cheat him because he's more powerful, because he's his boss. No, sit down, hear what the case is, analyze it, and with an impartial mind, help them facilitate mediation. So your neutrality is very important. Second technique for balancing power dynamics, very subtle, but it works a lot. Equal speaking time. Allocate equal speaking time to each party. That way, you prevent any one party from dominating the conversation. So use time limits for speaking turns and encourage parties to just go straight to the point. It's a very important technique for balancing power dynamics in mediation. Private caucuses also work a lot. Conduct private caucuses with each party separately, where they can freely express their concerns, their emotions, and their needs confidently. When the powerful party is not there, they are alone with you, they can say things that they may not be bold enough to say when the other person is there. Then you know how to manage that information and bring it up in the mediation process. But private caucuses provides an opportunity to level the playing field and address imbalances. We've talked about ground rules before. They also help balance power dynamics. Set clear ground rules, and all the parties must adhere to the same rules. Your ground rules must emphasize respect, equal participation, active listening, among other things. Those rules create a structured environment that minimizes power differences or power differentials, power imbalance. Another way to balance power dynamic, another technique rather, is to use support persons. When you know for sure that there is power imbalance, allow parties to bring support persons, a friend, an advisor, a witness, or whatever to the mediation process. So support persons can help balance power by providing, sometimes guidance, reassurance, making them more bold to say what's on their mind. So take, for example, a teacher and a student have been involved in a conflict, and as a Christian mediator, you are, helping resolve the conflict. You can allow the student, for example, to come with his or her parent. That immediately, tilts the power balance. That immediately addresses, the power differentials between the teacher and the student. So yes, you can use support persons to balance power dynamics. And then empowerment. Empower parties by encouraging them to express their needs. You must continue to encourage them, empower them, let them know, yes, you can speak what's on your mind, you are safe here, and all of that. Empower them. Use your words to motivate them to express themselves. Help them find their voice. That is one technique to help balance power dynamics. Directly addressing the power imbalance sometimes is necessary. If there is significant power imbalance, address it directly. Directly. Talk about it and start from there. Discuss with the parties, strategize with them on how to rectify it as you proceed in the mediation process. If need be, don't shy away from addressing power imbalance directly. And another way is to seek agreement, not compliance. Not compliance. Let them know throughout the entire process that, listen, this is not to end in a compliance kind of thing. It must be an agreement. So insist that parties must work towards agreements that all parties can voluntarily accept, rather than imposing solutions that one party or one or more parties must comply with because there is a powerful or a more powerful person in the mix. No. Seek agreement, not compliance. You see, these are very, very important techniques for facilitation in conflict resolution. Very powerful techniques for balancing power dynamics. It shows once if you can commit to these techniques in all of your mediation processes and involvement, you would have proven your commitment to fairness. The goal at the end of the day is to create an environment where everybody feel empowered to speak up and to collaborate in reaching a resolution that respects their individual needs and interests. So we've talked about creating a safe environment. We've talked about uh, setting ground rules, so creating structured communication. We've talked about reflective techniques. We've talked about balancing power dynamics in the mediation process. Now let's talk about techniques for promoting open dialogue. You need to encourage parties to communicate openly, honestly, and sincerely. They must be open, they must be honest, they must be sincere. Openly means, they say what's on their mind. Honesty means they are telling the truth. Sincerity means that they are true to their motives. All their motives, they are not pretending. So in being open, they are not hiding anything. In being honest, they are not changing anything. In being sincere, they are not pretending in any way. Now, how do you achieve this as a Christian mediator? Because if you cannot achieve this, your mediation process is not likely to be successful in the end. So, how do you promote openness, honesty, and sincerity? Number one technique for promoting open dialogue is neutral language. Encourage the use of neutral and non-confrontational language. Neutral and non-confrontational language. Once there is, confrontational language, one party may feel intimidated and shut down from open dialogue. So encourage neutral and non-confrontational language. Discourage judgmental or accusatory statements that can escalate tension. You as the mediator must not use such statements, and you must insist that the parties do not go that way. Doing this helps to streamline the turbulence of emotions that can get the best of people, where they even now begin to say the things they do not mean simply because they want the other person to feel hurt. A lot of people do that. So once you introduce this technique, you reduce the possibility of that happening, so they can actually be sincere to what's on their minds. Empathetic communication is another technique for promoting open dialogue. As a mediator, you must express empathy and understanding towards both parties. We have said that, and it cannot be overemphasized, really. Because when parties feel that the mediator acknowledges their feelings, acknowledges their perspectives, acknowledges their opinions, they are more likely to engage openly. So empathetic communication is a way, to promote open dialogue. And if you want open dialogue, you must ask open-ended questions, not close-ended questions. Open-ended questions allows the person answering to share their thoughts and feelings in depth. It promotes exploration and understanding. So take for example, somebody, two people have come to you, three people, a group has, come to you for mediation, and then one party has talked, and this is what happened and all, and then you ask, were you angry when it happened? That is a close-ended question, because the way to answer is yes or no. A better approach is to ask, how did you feel about it? That is an open-ended question. It allows for exploration. It allows for understanding. They can share their thoughts and feelings in depth. You have not streamlined the things they can say. So open-ended questions, is one of the important techniques for promoting open dialogue. Then focusing on interests rather than positions. Focus on interests. Encourage the parties to discuss their underlying interests, their underlying needs, the concerns they have, rather than rigid positions. This is what must happen. No, get them to talk about their needs, their interests, their concerns. You see, that way they explore their feelings better and they can talk more openly. So shift the focus from rigid positions to interests. It leads to more creative solutions. Brainstorming is another technique for promoting open dialogue. As a mediator, you must learn how to facilitate brainstorming sessions. After they've talked and then you have reached a common ground and all of that, then begin to you are now from the understanding of their needs, their interests, and all of that. You can then facilitate brainstorming sessions where both parties can generate potential solutions without immediate evaluation or judgment. You are not even trying to see whether it will work or not. You are not trying to ask the other person, what do you feel about that? Even you as the mediator, you are not trying to think about, okay, just get them to brainstorm and note all of the, potential solutions. As you do that, it fosters creativity and encourages open exploration of possibilities. So get them to brainstorm. As they do that again, open dialogue happens. Another technique is private caucus sessions. We talked about that under balancing power dynamics. And also for promoting open dialogue, sometimes private sessions with the parties involved can provide a safe space where they can share sensitive information, where they can talk about their concerns. Mediators can use these techniques to bridge gaps and build understanding. So you've called this party, you've talked, you've called the other party, you've talked, and then you bring them together and then you facilitate dialogue from there. Normalizing silence is also a technique for promoting open dialogue. Because listen, silence can be a valuable part of communication in conflict resolution. Can be a valuable part. Because sometimes you ask someone a question and they keep quiet for a while before answering. Don't rush them to speak. Don't make it look like they ought not to do so. Sometimes they may just need to gather their thoughts. They may need to reflect on their thoughts and their feelings before they answer. So normalize silence. If you want open dialogue, you need to make the parties understand that they are not pressured to fill every moment with words. They are permitted to just keep quiet for a while, gather their thoughts before they say anything. Normalize that in the mediation process. And then create feedback loops. Establish feedback loops during the mediation process. From time to time, try to find out, from these people who have come to you, whether they are comfortable, whether they are satisfied with the process, if they have any concerns, from time to time at, good intervals. It may not be a regular interval like every 15 minutes, but make it an important part of your mediation process where you just check in again. Hope you are comfortable. Hope you are satisfied with how this is going. Hope you are okay. Do you have any concerns? That way, you encourage them to maintain open dialogue throughout because they know that you care about what is on their mind. You want to know whether they are satisfied, whether they are okay, whether they want to continue. So they feel like, yes, I can really talk here. So promote open dialogue with these techniques. Again, these techniques for promoting open dialogue include neutral and impartial language, empathetic communication, open ended questions, focusing on interests and not positions, brainstorming, private caucus sessions, normalizing silence, and creating feedback loops. Managing conflict dynamics is also an important set of facilitation skills that you must develop. Understand conflict dynamics and help disputing parties to manage them. This is very, very crucial in conflict resolution, in negotiation, in mediation. You must help the disputing parties navigate the dynamics of conflict constructively. Now, what are conflict dynamics? They are the complex and ever-changing patterns, ever-changing behaviors that occur within a dispute or a conflict. Talking about how conflicts develop in the first place, how they escalate, how they de-escalate, how they continue, or how they get resolved. As a mediator, you must understand, conflict dynamics in various contexts and help the disputing parties navigate these. So in every conflict, there are a few things you must pay attention to. Try to understand what role, has this played in this conflict. or how is this factor affecting this conflict, and then help the parties navigate. Now, here are some of the conflict dynamics that you need to help manage. Escalation. You see, many times conflicts don't start as a complex issue. Many times conflict many times will start with minor disagreements, but these minor disagreements can escalate if they are not addressed. So you need to evaluate the escalation of the conflict. Don't just address, okay, this is what they have brought. Look at how this issue might have escalated. Did it progress from mild tension to more intense forms of hostility? How did that happen? Was it because there was a misunderstanding? Was it because there were unmet needs? Was it due to power imbalance? What contributed to the escalation? If you understand that, you can then call their attention to that and help them revisit that aspect, because sometimes revisiting that is the only way to de-escalate and eventually resolve the conflict. So evaluate that part. Also evaluate communication patterns. Evaluate how the different people involved in this dispute or conflict communicate with one another, because it plays a significant role in the dynamics of the conflict. So have you noticed aggressive communication, passive aggressive, or some form of avoidance, or has there been constructive dialogue? You need to pay attention to that. Again, once you pick anything there that may have aggravated the conflict, point the attention to it and work from there. You remember, like we said, Christian mediation is value-based. So in addressing these issues, point the attention to scriptural values that they must uphold, or scriptural values that, if upheld, will eventually resolve this issue. Another conflict dynamic is power imbalance. We've talked about that already, so I wouldn't spend more time talking on it. So if there is difference in power or influence, it can affect how conflicts unfold. So recognize power dynamics, evaluate if there is any power imbalance, recognize it and address it, so that you can create a fair resolution process. Negative emotions is another conflict dynamic. Evaluate their emotions, things like anger, frustration, fear. These things can intensify conflicts. They can lead to defensive behaviors that will make it challenging to find common ground or reach a resolution. So if you understand that, okay, there is frustration here, you cannot proceed with, mediation towards resolution until that is addressed. So watch out for negative emotions and address them. Also evaluate cycles of conflict. Cycles of conflict. Because some conflicts follow the same pattern that repeats itself in cycles. So, for example, in a relationship, conflicts can recur over the same issue. That indicates an ongoing cycle that needs to be addressed to achieve a lasting solution. So if you notice that, there is a cycle of conflict, again, point the attention to it and walk through it in addressing the conflict. Next dynamic is third party involvement. The dynamics of a conflict can be influenced by the involvement of a third party. So two friends, there may be a third friend whose involvement, in marriage, there may be in-laws, In employer employee, there may be another employee in the picture. So identify, is there a third party that is uh, making this matter worse, aggravating the issue? Or is there a third party whose intervention has helped maintain some measure of, sanctity all along? Identify that, point their attention to it, and help them walk through it. Resolution attempt is another dynamic, because sometimes conflicts have emerged through different phases where parties have actually attempted to resolve the conflict without success. So maybe they've gone through negotiation. Some have even gone to court and come back. So you need to evaluate the resolution methods that they have, employed in time past. Evaluate how it ended. Evaluate the willingness of parties to participate in this current resolution attempt. Evaluate how the previous attempts have impacted, their participation or their willingness or their commitment to the process, or how it has affected them or affected the conflict itself in the first place. Evaluate impact on relationships, because sometimes conflicts can have lasting impact on relationships. Unresolved conflict, poorly managed conflict can strain relationships. So evaluate, how has this impacted the relationship? Again, draw attention to it and help them work towards an effective resolution. External factors can also affect the dynamics of a conflict. Things like cultural norms, societal pressures, economic conditions. Stress from workplace, for instance, can cause issues in marriage. You think the issue is the real issue until you evaluate the external factors, and then you realize that this is not really an internal thing. There's something going on the outside affecting this person and has led to this conflict. So evaluate external factors, point the attention to it, and again help them walk through it, because sometimes external factors are the reasons why conflicts start in the first place, or they are the things that made the conflict more complex. Then de-escalation and resolution. Understand, looking at all of these things, how do you work towards de-escalation and resolution? Guide parties towards mutually acceptable solutions. Walk them through, all these dynamics, and bring them eventually to the place of de-escalation and resolution. Evaluate evolving patterns of behaviors, of emotions, of interactions, the different factors that may have contributed to the conflict, so that you have a broad view. In your beginning times as a mediator, you can list out some of these things, so that as people talk, you are making notes, you are filling in, you are ticking things, so that it gives you a broad overview of what you are dealing with. And it helps you to eventually, work towards a resolution. As I round up this module, I want to show you the end game of facilitation. We've talked about communication, facilitation. Now, what is the end game? The targets of communication and mediation, communication and facilitation rather, in mediation is fourfold. Number one, in all of these things that you are doing, balancing power dynamics, managing conflict dynamics, and all of that, creating an environment, all of these things that you are doing, The first thing you are working towards is to identify common ground and shared values. That's your first end game. That's the first thing you work towards. Identify common ground and shared values. Once that is accomplished, you can now move to stage two. Stage two, generating options for resolution. Generating options for resolution. Okay, I think we can do it this way. Now, you facilitate that process. You can suggest, but allow them to also bring their creative ideas. In fact, they are the primary people that should be talking. You should do more of guiding. So guide them to generate options. You are not trying to evaluate the options. You are not trying to judge the options. You are not trying to see whether it will work. You are just, noting the different options. Once you have successfully done that, then you navigate impasses and obstacles. Okay, this option, this is why it may not work. This option, this is why, this is my own concern about it. So you are now seeing or looking at the different obstacles and looking at how to navigate them. And then from there, you move to the last stage, drafting mutually agreeable solutions. So when you establish common grounds, you are looking at common interest, you are looking at shared values from scriptures, and you are helping them to take immediate actions on that. So, for example, the one who needs to repent repents, the one who needs to apologize apologizes, the one who needs to forgive forgives, the one who needs to, draw back on decisions draws back on decisions. So you are just establishing common grounds and getting everybody to be on the same page. Then next, you start looking at options for resolution. You generate options. Then you begin to navigate the obstacles in each of the options and evaluate them and look at what can work. And finally, you draft a mutually agreeable solution. If you can follow this process and you can learn, the skill set that we have discussed in this module, you will definitely become a top-notch Christian mediator. Don't forget that it is important to keep developing these skills. This, module is not a one-time thing. You have listened to it and you know it and you have mastered it. You need to listen over and over again from time to time. Once in a while, you need to revisit it to evaluate yourself again and then to take notes, because as you practice, it will become more practical. So when you listen again, you now begin to evaluate based on past experiences, and then you fine tune your skills again. And then so it's an ongoing development that must happen to you. There must be ongoing skill development in all of these techniques that we have discussed today. And as much as possible, get peer support and mentoring. Discuss your experiences with other Christian mediators so that you can support one another. Discuss with a mentor from time to time. Share experiences. Get insight. That way, you will continue to improve and you continue to get better and better as a Christian mediator. Thank you very much for listening in. I want to know your name, where you are listening from, and most importantly, what you have learned from this module and how it is going to help you as a Christian mediator. Please drop your comments. Let me know. I will be reading, and others will also be reading to see how this module has helped you. Once again, this is the College of Christian Professionals and Researchers. We are the Professional College of Spirit Growth Theological Seminary. You can reach out to us. Our contact details are right on your screen. Till the next module, when we meet again, God bless you.